The girl stood barefoot on the frozen porch, breath trembling in the air, staring at the biker collapsed in her yard, leather stiff with frost, beard lined with ice. At dawn, she dragged him inside with hands too small for the weight of a man that big. By sunrise the next day, the world outside her house would shake. The storm had chewed through Ashford Ridge all night, leaving the Montana town glazed in ice thick enough to crack tires. 7-year-old Harper Lane pressed her forehead to the window pane, watching the cold turn her breath into tiny ghosts. Her grandmother slept upstairs, unaware of the dark shape half buried in the snow near the cedar tree. At first, Harper thought it was a fallen log, but logs didn't wear leather. Logs didn't have boots sticking out at strange angles, and logs didn't groan softly when the wind hit them. She slipped on her oversized coat, her father's old ranch jacket, and waddled outside. The cold slapped her cheeks pink, but she pushed through it. The man was huge, a mountain folded in on itself. A patch on his jacket read Horseman, Montana chapter. Another showed an angel with broken wings. His beard was white with frost. His lips were blue. "Hey, sir," Harper whispered, touching his glove. No response. She leaned harder and felt the faintest rise of breath beneath her hand. Her heart hammered. Grandma always said, if someone's hurt, you try. Doesn't matter who they are. Harper grabbed the biker's arm with both mittened hands and pulled. Nothing. She tried again, planting her boots into the ice. The man shifted an inch, then another. 20 slow minutes later, she had dragged him across the porch boards creaking under the weight of a stranger who looked carved from trouble. Inside, warmth began thawing his face. Harper shut the door and whispered, "You're safe now." She hoped it was true. The biker woke to the sound of a kettle whistling and the smell of cedarwood heat. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused, blinking away the fog of pain. He wasn't dead, but he wasn't outside anymore either. A tiny voice chirped, "Don't move too fast. Your leg's real crooked." He turned his head. The little girl from the porch sat cross-legged beside him, holding a warm cloth like she'd been waiting for him to open his eyes. "What happened?" His voice came out gravelly. "You fell," Harper said simply, "and you were freezing, so I dragged you in. My grandma's still asleep. She's old. She snores louder than trucks." The man let out a weak huff that might have been a laugh. Pain knifed up his shin when he tried to shift. He swallowed it down. Years of riding, and before that, years of things he didn't talk about, had taught him to hide hurt. He looked at her. Soft brown eyes, chapped lips, determined little jaw. Something in his chest tightened. "What's your name, kid?" "Harper Lane. What's yours?" He hesitated. Outsiders usually learned his road name first. "Most people call me Bear." "'Cause you're big?" she asked. Something like that. Harper offered him a cup of warm water with both hands. "You were really cold," she said softly. "I didn't want you to die in our yard. That'd be sad." Bear stared at her, stunned by how simple she made it sound. No fear, no hesitation. Just a child saving a stranger twice the size of her. "You shouldn't have done all that for me," he murmured. Harper shrugged. Someone had to. Grandma June's footsteps hit the hall, steady, irritated, familiar. Harper straightened. Bear braced himself. He'd met plenty of grandmothers in life, but none ever reacted calmly to a 6'4" biker bleeding on their rug. The kitchen door swung open. June halted mid-stride, eyes widening at the massive man sprawled near her fireplace. "Harper Lane," she whispered sharply. "Explain." Harper stepped in front of Bear like a tiny human shield. He was freezing outside. I brought him in. His legs broken. June's gaze flicked from Harper to Bear. "Sir, are you conscious?" Bear nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I wrecked on the ice. Your granddaughter saved my life." June approached him cautiously, not afraid, but assessing, the way nurses and mothers do. Her hand brushed his forehead, warmth returning, skin too pale. Her jaw tightened. You need a doctor, she said. I can manage till morning, Bear replied. You can manage nothing, June snapped softly. Your leg is swelling by the minute. She checked his pulse, then the angle of his shin, pressing gently. He winced despite himself. Clean break, she murmured. Harper, fetch my splint kit. Top shelf. Bear studied the older woman. Her silver hair was tied back in a messy bun. Wrinkles framed her eyes, but they were sharp, seen a lot sharp. Her hands were steady as she examined him. You a medic? He asked. Retired ER nurse. 32 years. Bear exhaled slowly. Fate coincidence, whatever it was. He'd landed on the right porch. June wasn't done. I'm letting you stay, she said. But understand, if you bring trouble to my home, I'll call the sheriff myself. Bear nodded. I'm not here for trouble, ma'am. June believed him. Barely. Once June finished splinting his leg, she moved to the stove without another word. Bear lay back, breathing through the pain, listening to the house. Old floorboards. Soft heater hum. Harper humming to herself as she found Band-Aids shaped like ladybugs. He'd never been in a house that felt like this. Not in 20 years. Harper plopped down beside him and pressed a tiny ladybug Band-Aid to his scraped knuckle. There. Now you're official. Bear raised an eyebrow. Official what? A patient, she said. Grandma says everyone heals better when they feel cared about. He swallowed. Something unexpectedly warm hit his chest. June returned with a warm broth in a chipped mug. She knelt, not close, not comfortable, but civil. Drink, she ordered. He did. His hand shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. You've been riding long, she asked. 26 years. And crashing this badly? Not since '09. June nodded like she'd expected as much. Pain from that crash still bother you? Bear froze. Few people could read him like that. A little, he admitted. Old injuries talk loud in winter. Silence settled. Crackling fire. Wind scraping the eaves. Harper leaning against his elbow like it was the most natural thing in the world. June finally spoke, quieter. You with the club? Yeah. Trouble. He shook his head. Not the kind that follows you into someone's home. June's eyes softened just slightly. Good. For a moment, the three of them sat in fragile peace. An injured biker, cautious grandmother, and a girl who saw people's hearts before their shadows. Bear drifted in and out of sleep as the storm raged outside. Pain throbbed deep in his leg, but the warmth and blankets dulled it enough that he finally stopped clenching his jaw. When he woke again, Harper sat near the window. Crayons spread across the floor. She was dry. June emerged from the laundry room, holding his jacket, freshly cleaned of dried snow and grit. She didn't hand it to him, just set it on the table. I don't pretend to know bikers, she said, but I know patches tell stories. Bear tensed. People usually judged before they asked. June lifted the jacket, eyes tracing the embroidered angel with broken wings. This one means loss. Bear swallowed hard. My daughter, he said quietly. She passed 5 years ago. June's expression softened with a painful kind of understanding. I'm sorry. Harper stepped closer, folding her arms like she always did when she sensed sadness. What was her name? Ellie, Bear whispered. That's a pretty name, Harper said. Did she like motorcycles too? Bear nodded, unable to voice more. Harper climbed up onto the couch beside him, close enough that her shoulder touched his arm. Then I'll draw her one, she said gently. A happy one, with good pipes. Bear closed his eyes, breathing shaky for the first time in years. Someone was caring about him again, and it hurt in a way that made him feel alive. Morning crept in slow, pale, and bitterly cold. June opened the curtains just enough to let the light check on her unexpected house guest without giving the neighbors anything to gossip about. Bear woke with a grunt, blinking against the brightness. The pain in his leg pulsed, but the warmth of the room softened its edge. Harper was already hovering, holding something behind her back. "You awake?" she asked. "More or less." She bounced onto her toes. "I drew Ellie's motorcycle. Want to see?" June shot her a warning look, but Bear nodded gently. "Yeah, sweetheart. I'd like that." Harper revealed the drawing with a flourish. It was lopsided and messy, pipes crooked and wheels enormous, but there was a tiny figure riding it, hair flying behind her like sparks. Bear stared at the picture far longer than Harper expected. His throat tightened. She would have loved this. June watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. Grief was something she recognized instantly. Its weight, its glow, its strange ability to soften even the roughest man. Bear shifted, wincing at his leg. "I need to call my brothers," he said finally. "Let them know where I am." June nodded. "Phone's on the counter. But if any more men show up dressed like you, I want to know ahead of time." He almost smiled. "They're good people. They'll be grateful you helped me." "Grateful," June repeated. "We'll see." Harper hopped beside him, tugging at the blanket. "Are they all as big as you?" Bear chuckled. "Bigger." Her eyes widened with excitement, and June sighed, already regretting everything. Bear reached for the phone, but his hands trembled more than he wanted anyone to notice. Harper pretended not to see. June pretended not to care. He dialed a number from memory. A gruff voice answered immediately. "Bear, where the hell are you?" "Wrecked on the ridge," Bear said. "Legs busted. I'm at a house off Cedar Pass Road." "You alone?" "No. Got taken in by a family." A pause. "Safe family." Bear looked at Harper drawing in the corner, and June wiping down a spotless counter just to keep busy. "Yeah," he said softly. "Safe. We're coming to get you. 2 hours. Storm's still bad." "No," Harper blurted, racing over. "You can't leave yet. We haven't fixed you." Bear covered the receiver, eyes softening. "I'm not leaving this second, kid. They just need to check on me." June cleared her throat, arms crossing. "As long as they don't bring trouble." "They won't," Bear promised. He returned to the call. "Come slow. Ice everywhere." "Copy that. Sit tight. And Bear." "Yeah, you scared the hell out of us." Bear hung up, breathing out slowly. Relief and dread tangled together. He wasn't worried about his brothers meeting June. He was worried about her meeting them. June noticed. "You expecting problems?" "Not with them." But he glanced toward the window, where the world was white and quiet. "There's another group that's been stirring things up. Rival club. They've been pushing into our territory." June's lips thinned. "And do they know you're out here?" Bear hoped not. But hope had never been something he could rely on. The tension in the room settled low and heavy. The kind Harper could feel even if she didn't understand. She climbed onto the chair beside Bear and handed him a leftover Christmas cookie shaped like a tree. "Here," she said. "It fixes bad moods." Bear cracked a smile. "Does it? Works on Grandma." June snorted softly. "Barely." Bear took a bite. The cookie was stale, slightly burnt, and perfect. It grounded him just enough to breathe. A sudden thud hit the porch. Everyone froze. June's head snapped toward the door. The sound was heavy, too heavy to be a branch or snow falling. Bear's instincts flared sharp and immediate. He tried to sit upright, pain slicing through him. "Stay put," June ordered, stepping toward the window with the confidence of someone who'd handled chaos before. Harper's fingers wrapped around Bear's sleeve. "Is it your friends?" "No," he murmured. "They wouldn't show up this fast." June peeked through the curtain, just an inch. A dark shape stood on the porch. Leather jacket. Wrong patch. Her stomach dropped. "Bear," she whispered. "Is that—" He didn't need to look. He knew those colors. "Rival club," he said. Voice low. Controlled. Dangerous. June inhaled sharply. "Why are they here?" "They've been tracking movement along the ridge. Probably saw my skid marks. Bear's jaw clenched. If they think I'm alone and injured. Harper pressed closer. What do we do? Bear took her hand gently. We stay quiet. We don't open that door. Another knock, harder this time. June moved Harper behind her. Bear reached instinctively toward the pocket knife in his jacket, only to remember he couldn't stand, couldn't fight, couldn't protect them the way he needed to. The doorknob rattled, and all three held their breath. The rattling grew more insistent, metal clacking in sharp bursts. Anyone home? A voice called, muffled but unmistakably unfriendly. Saw a crash down the road. Just check in for survivors. June's eyes narrowed. Predators, she murmured under her breath. She'd met men like that in the R. Men who showed up after bar fights, smelling of gasoline and lies. Bear motioned for her to step back. They know I went down. They're not checking to help. Are they dangerous? Harper whispered. Bear hesitated. Yes. June didn't flinch. Instead, she moved to the fireplace poker and wrapped her hand around it like she'd been waiting years for an excuse. Another knock, 3 sharp bangs that made the frame shake. June lifted her chin. This is a private residence. Move along. The man laughed. Just being neighborly. Storm this bad? Never know who needs a hand. Bear gritted his teeth. June. Window. Now. She didn't question, just looked. A second man had appeared, circling toward the side of the house. They're flanking, Bear said. They think I crawled somewhere to die. June exhaled slowly. She wasn't a fool. What do they do if they find you here? Bear met her eyes, and for the first time since they'd found, they'll try to take me, and they won't care who's in the way. Harper whimpered, and June gathered her close. Bear, June said, voice calm and terrifyingly level. Tell me what we need to do. He looked toward the back door, the one that's stuck unless you kicked it just right. Hide me, he said, and don't let them inside. June moved fast, faster than Bear expected from someone her age. She pointed to the storage room off the hallway. In there. Harper, bring the blankets. Harper scrambled, grabbing every quilt she could find. Bear tried to stand, but pain stole his breath. June braced his arm across her shoulders, hauling more weight than she should have been able to. You'll hurt yourself, he growled through clenched teeth. Shut up and move, she snapped. Every step was fire. Every inch dragged felt like another failure, another reminder of how helpless he was right now. They reached the storage room. June lowered him onto a pile of boxes padded with old coats and quilts. Harper immediately bundled him, layering fabric like she was building a fort. You have to stay quiet, she whispered, eyes wide and shimmering. Bear cupped her cheek. I will. You're brave, you know that. A faint pounding shook the front door again. June stepped back, gripping the poker tight. Once I close this door, you make no sound unless the house is burning. Bear nodded. June, thank you. She swallowed the emotion rising in her throat. Don't thank me yet. The storage door clicked shut. Bear listened as June guided Harper away, whispering instructions, where to stand, what not to touch, when to run if she said so. Bootsteps crunched outside. 2 shadows stretched across the frosted windows. Ma'am, one man called, sugary sweet and venomous. We're obligated to check on crash victims. Open the door. June's voice cut through the silence, steady as stone. This house doesn't open for liars. The porch went still. Then the doorknob turned. The doorknob twisted slow, deliberate, like the man wanted her to hear every click of metal. June planted her feet, poker raised but steady. Harper stood behind her, hands clinging to the hem of June's sweater, tiny fingers trembling. Ma'am, the man drawled through the door. Open up before we assume you can't. June's jaw tightened. This is private property. You have no reason to be here. A second voice chimed in, rougher, impatient. We saw a bike wiped out on the ridge. Big one. Ryder's gotta be close. Not my concern, June answered. Leave. A pause. Then a tap, knuckles dragging across the wood like claws. Funny thing, the first man said. Fresh tracks led to your porch. Not many folks around to rescue a stranger in this weather. June felt Harper's breath hitch. Inside the storage room, Bear held still, every muscle wired tight, listening. He pictured the layout. 2 men. Aggressive. Testing boundaries. If they pushed that door open. A loud crack sounded. One of the men kicking the bottom panel. Harper gasped. June stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. Try that again, and I'll introduce your skull to the business end of this poker. Silence. Then soft laughter. Feisty. Wrong house to knock on, June replied. Footsteps shifted, one man stepping off the porch, checking windows. Bear's pulse thundered. If they saw movement inside the storage room, it was over. June leaned closer to the door. You've got 5 seconds to walk away. And if we don't? June tightened her grip. Then you find out why the sheriff still owes me 3 favors. Another beat of silence. The wind howled. The men didn't move. The porch creaked, one of the men pacing, boots grinding frost like gravel. June tracked the footsteps by sound alone. Look, the first man said, voice dipping into forced charm. No need to get worked up. We just want to look around. Make sure no one's hurt. June didn't blink. If someone's hurt on my land, I'll take care of it myself. That's so, the rougher one laughed. Pretty big job for a lady your age. Harper stiffened, bristling like a tiny cat. June rested a steadying hand on her back. Inside the storage room, Bear strained to hear every word. Sweat beaded along his hairline, despite the cold. His brothers were still over an hour away. If the storm didn't slow them further. He was a sitting target, and these men knew it. Another kick, this one deliberate, controlled. Testing the frame. June stepped closer to the door. You break that, you pay for it. Oh, we'll pay. The man sneered. In conversation. The doorknob rattled again. Harper whispered, Grandma, what if? June raised a hand, silencing her. Listen carefully, June said through the door, her voice dropping into a tone Bear recognized immediately. Yar command mode. The voice of a woman who had faced down blood, chaos, and men twice her size. This house is armed, and I am not afraid to defend a child. A long pause. Then the first man said quietly, We're not leaving without checking that storage room. There's tracks in the snow. Bear's heart dropped like a stone. June inhaled sharply. You've got no right. Lady, he interrupted, open the damn door. Harper clung to June's leg, trembling. And then, a truck engine growled in the distance. June's eyes snapped to the window. Someone was coming. The rumble of the engine cut through the tension like a blade. June didn't know whether to feel relief or dread. The men on the porch reacted fast. Someone's coming, the rougher voice muttered. No kidding, the first hissed. Back off. Act natural. They stepped off the porch just as headlights swung across the yard, scattering pale beams across the trees. June cracked the curtain open. A lifted pickup crawled through the snow. Chains on the tires, lights cutting through the storm. The engine was too old, too loud to belong to anyone from town. Bear recognized it instantly. His heart leapt. Brothers. The truck skidded to a stop. 2 men climbed out, massive, bearded, patched in the same horseman colors Bear wore. The rival bikers stiffened, shoulders tense. The taller horseman, Diesel, spotted the strangers first. You boys lost, he called, voice calm but coated in threat. No problem here, the rival said quickly. Just checking on a crash victim. Doing our civic duty. Diesel's lips curled. Funny, I didn't know the Vipers cared about civic anything. The rival biker tried to smile. It came out wrong. Storm's rough. Never hurts to look out for people. Diesel took a step closer. Then you won't mind telling me why you're snooping around a house that doesn't belong to you. Inside the storage room, Bear exhaled in short, shaky breaths. They were here. They'd come for him. June's hand loosened on the poker, just slightly. Harper peeked out from behind her, eyes huge. Are those the good guys? June wasn't sure yet, but Bear knew, and relief burned hot in his chest. The tension between the rival bikers and the horsemen thickened until the cold air itself felt ready to snap. Diesel's brother, Mason, stockier, quieter, infinitely more dangerous, rounded the truck, eyes sweeping the scene. His gaze landed on the motorcycle tracks leading toward June's porch. He stiffened. Bear went down here. June felt Harper clutch her hand again. Diesel stepped closer to the porch. "Where's he?" he asked the rivals, tone flat. The rougher man shrugged. "Didn't see him. He probably crawled off somewhere. We're just helping look." "Helping," Diesel repeated, tasting the word with disgust. "You don't help anyone unless there's something in it for you." The first rival biker raised both hands. "Look, we don't want trouble." "Then leave." Mason's hand dropped to the hilt of the knife at his belt, a subtle, silent warning. June didn't like weapons, but right now, she felt like blessing that knife. The rivals exchanged a look, calculating, not brave enough to challenge two horsemen with fresh tread on their tires, but not ready to walk away either. Diesel gave them one final offer. "Snow's getting worse. Roads are bad. Turn around while you still can." The rougher one spat into the snow. "This ain't over." "It is today," Diesel said, stepping forward enough that the rival biker flinched. The two Vipers finally backed off, climbing onto their bikes. Engines roared to life. They sped down the frozen road, reckless, angry, but retreating. June let out a long breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Harper whispered, "Grandma, did we win?" June closed her eyes. "For now, baby." But Bear knew enough about men like the Vipers to understand. Retreat wasn't surrender. It was regrouping. The moment the rivals disappeared down the road, Diesel and Mason climbed the porch steps. They knocked, firm but respectful. June cracked the door open 2 inches, poker still in hand. "Ma'am," Diesel said, dipping his chin politely. "We're looking for our brother. Big guy. Beard. Answers to Bear even when he shouldn't." June hesitated, protective instinct flaring, but she saw honesty in their eyes, worry, not threat. "He's here," she finally said. "Injured. Legs broken." Diesel exhaled in relief. Mason muttered, "Idiot," under his breath. Harper popped out from behind June. "He's in the storage room, but you have to be quiet." Mason blinked. "Quiet." Diesel smiled. "Lead the way." June stepped aside. "But wipe your boots. Mud on my floors is a crime in this house." Both men obeyed instantly. Harper guided them down the hall with serious urgency, like a tiny soldier. June opened the storage room door. Bear blinked against the light as it spilled in. Relief hit him like a blow when he saw Diesel's familiar silhouette. "Took you long enough," Bear muttered. Diesel barked a laugh. "You try driving through this storm with Mason panicking in the passenger seat." "I wasn't panicking," Mason grumbled. "You just drive like a drunk moose." Harper giggled for the first time since the knocking started. Diesel crouched beside Bear, examining the splint. "You're lucky these folks found you." Bear turned to June. "Lucky doesn't cover it." June shook her head. "Don't make me regret it." Diesel sobered. "We need to move him. Vipers will be back." Harper's smile faded. "They'll come again?" Bear met her eyes. "Yeah," he said quietly. "They will. And this time they wouldn't knock." June crossed her arms. "Move him where?" "Roads are dangerous. He can barely stand." Diesel nodded. "We brought the truck with the lift. We can get him inside without jolting the leg too much." Bear tried to sit up, wincing. "Storm's getting worse. You sure you can make it back?" Mason leaned against the doorframe, not planning on going back yet. Bear frowned. What? Diesel shifted his weight, glancing toward the front windows. Vipers aren't the type to let things go. If they think you're in this house, they'll come back with more men. Harper looked between them, fear creeping back into her features. So what are you saying? June asked, voice cool. Diesel met her eyes. We're staying. June blinked. Excuse me. Only until the road's clear. Mason added quickly. We'll keep watch outside. Make sure those men don't return. Harper brightened instantly. Like our dogs. Mason coughed. More like guard people. June pressed a hand to her forehead. I can't have 3 giant bikers camped outside my home. You'd rather have vipers on your porch? Mason asked. That shut her up. Bear reached for June's hand, surprising both of them. They won't disrespect your home. They won't cause trouble. But if the vipers come back, you and Harper shouldn't face them alone. June looked at Bear's injured leg, then at Harper's hopeful face, then at the frozen road beyond her window. She exhaled slowly. Fine, she said, but you follow my rules. Diesel nodded. Yes, ma'am. Harper pumped her fist. We have bikers guarding the house. June groaned. What had she agreed to? It took nearly 20 minutes, and the combined strength of Diesel and Mason, to move Bear from the storage room into the living room without jarring his leg too much. June supervised like a hawk, correcting every angle, every lift, every step. Keep his foot elevated, she ordered. Ma'am, we got him, Diesel assured. You'll get him a lot faster if you listen to the medical professional. Diesel shut his mouth. They settled Bear onto the couch. Harper tucked blankets around him with the precision of a field surgeon. Comfort level maximum, she declared. Bear grinned. You're getting good at this. June slipped him a fresh dose of pain medication. This will take the edge off. Bear accepted it gratefully. Outside, the wind howled harder. Snow thickened, swallowing the world into a white blur. Mason cracked the front door, scanning the road. No movement, he reported. For now. June crossed her arms. Where exactly do you plan on staying? Diesel gestured toward the porch. We'll take shifts outside. Keep watch. You'll freeze. June snapped. We're used to cold. Not my concern, June said, grabbing her coat. You'll take shifts inside by the window. I'm not explaining frostbite to an ER that already knows me too well. Mason blinked. You are letting us inside. No, June corrected sharply. I'm letting you near the window. There's a difference. Harper whispered to Bear. Grandma likes them. That's why she's yelling. Bear laughed softly. Yeah, kid, that's exactly why. Night fell early, swallowing the ridge in a sheet of blackness pierced only by the fireplace glow and the icy glint of snow reflecting moonlight. The storm raged on, hammering the windows like impatient fists. Diesel sat near the front window on watch, chair angled so he could see both the road and June's disapproving glare. Mason paced the hallway, restless energy rolling off him. Harper sat beside Bear, reading aloud from a worn fairy tale book, even though she was mostly making up the plot and characters. And then, she continued seriously, the brave knight didn't run away, even though the dragon was big and smelled weird. Mason paused. Is that in the book? No, Harper said, but he probably did smell weird. Fair enough, Mason admitted. Bear watched them all, his brothers, Harper, June, feeling something unfamiliar creeping into his chest. Something he'd forgotten existed. Safety. Diesel stiffened suddenly. Movement. June was at his side in an instant. Where? Right side of the road. Shadows. Bear's muscles locked. Vipers. Diesel narrowed his eyes. Can't tell. Too dark. Harper crawled closer to Bear, gripping his blanket. Are they back? Maybe, Bear said quietly, but we're ready. A shape moved between the trees. Then another. Slow. Careful. Not approaching, circling. Mason cursed under his breath. They're scouting. June's breath went cold. Tonight. Storm's perfect cover, Diesel said. They think no one's watching. June straightened her spine. They're wrong. Bear shifted, grimacing as his leg throbbed. If they push inside. They won't, Diesel said. But Bear knew men like the vipers. The longer they circled, the bolder they'd become. By midnight, the house felt like a fortress under siege. Diesel stayed stationed at the window, Mason at the back door with a flashlight, June patrolling between them like a commander surveying her lines. Harper refused to leave Bear's side, wrapped in a blanket and determined to stay awake in case the bad guys sneak in. Bear tried to talk her into sleeping, but she shook her head fiercely. You didn't leave me when you were hurt. I'm not leaving you when you're scared. Bear swallowed, overwhelmed. I'm not scared. She nodded. Okay, then I'm not either. A thump hit the side of the house. Everyone froze. Diesel snapped the lights off, plunging the room into darkness except for the fire's glow. Mason whispered, "Back window." Something brushed it. June gripped the poker again. "Animals." "Too heavy," Mason replied. Bear strained to listen. The sound had weight, human weight. Footsteps crunched just beyond the back door. Mason positioned himself, body coiled. A voice called softly through the storm. "Bear." Bear's blood went cold. "Your mouth, who?" He shook his head. "Not one of ours." Harper's eyes widened, fingers digging into his arm. The voice came again, closer. "We know you're hurt. Come out, brother. We'll take you home." Diesel's jaw clenched. They're taunting. The footsteps stopped right outside the back door. For a second, the world went silent. Then, a violent slam shook the frame. Harper screamed. Mason braced himself. Diesel raised his knife. And June stepped forward, fearless. The back door shuddered under the blow, hinges rattling. Mason planted his shoulder against it, grunting. "They're trying to break in." Bear struggled upright, pain flaring white-hot. "Don't let them inside. If they get in, they'll overwhelm us." June motioned Harper behind the couch. "Stay low. Don't move till I say." The door slammed again, harder. A crack formed in the wood near the lock. Diesel moved fast, grabbing a heavy oak chair and wedging it under the handle. Buy us time. Bear's breath came shallow. He felt useless. Crawling wouldn't help. Fighting was impossible. But he was not going to let these men hurt the people who saved him. He scanned the room, the fireplace tools, the coat rack. Nothing he could swing without losing balance. Nothing strong enough. His eyes landed on the old wooden trunk at the base of the stairs. Heavy. Solid. "Diesel," Bear rasped, pointing. "Barricade with that." Diesel didn't question. He hauled the trunk over, muscles straining, and slammed it against the door. Mason reinforced it with his shoulder. The pounding outside grew frantic. "Bear," the voice called, angrier now. "You're making this harder than it has to be." Bear shouted back, "Leave these people alone. This is between us." A laugh cut through the storm. "They made it their problem when they took you in." Harper whimpered from behind the couch. June held her tightly, eyes blazing with fury. Mason yelled over the noise. "They're going to break through eventually." Diesel answered, "Not before the storm lifts. We hold them off as long as." A window shattered in the hallway. Harper screamed again. June gasped. Bear's heart stopped. They were inside.